Okay, David. No problem, David.
Mayor, there's an agenda at your seat. Do you want it?
I'll get it. I'm gonna sit there for until I get up here.
Okay. Mr. Milan.
What's up? Come in, Peter. How are you?
Kenny's supposed to call in.
Okay. I knew he said that to me.
And he said he would call in.
If he can.
He definitely, he told
Oh,
me
okay.
yesterday, he definitely.
All right.
But it maybe something happened. Mayor, you got that check in?
Yeah. Yeah, you are. Yeah. It's weird. Louis, I don't know what happened to my Lafayette face mask. I'm going up to campus today to welcome to speak at the commencement or the inauguration, and I don't have my Lafayette mask.
I'm sure they'll give you a new one.
I know.
They'll probably hand them out.
If I want one, I'll wear one of the EPD ones.
Where's the commencement? Not a commencement. Where's the inauguration?
Inauguration's on the quad.
Okay.
It's outside.
Okay.
They relinquished the the requirement for a vaccine, proof of vaccine, and recent test within 2 days. They were originally going to have that, but the numbers have come way down.
Lafayette.
They surged 2 weeks ago, and they've been coming down ever since. So they removed that. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people on the campus today that they would have had to get a test.
That's good.
There's Kenny.
Kenny, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I told everyone, I said, get here by 10 now because you usually start your public presentations 5 up.
I do?
You're always early.
Always early?
Yeah.
Well, we can't start the meeting till noon.
I know. You're always early.
2 minutes.
Well, I see they listen to you, Louis.
Well, I had meetings with all 3 of them anyway this morning.
Dave showed up because he wanted to make sure he gets all his money.
He's been freaking out last night. I said, get his phone.
Oh.
Anybody hear about Jim? Is he coming? Mayor?
He said he was at the last meeting, but I don't know. The only one who told us they weren't coming was Roger and Sandy, and Ken said he would call in. I haven't heard anything about Jim.
I'm not sure Carl's making it.
Carl's not going to make it.
Until next week. And then John.
Yeah, he's not working Garlic Fest either. Bitey will take care of that because He wants to make sure he takes his 10 days. His fever broke, but he's feeling still sluggish. That was a high fever he had.
I know. His tone has changed on the subject.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have it, I mean, when I had it last year, it changed my tone too.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, Kurt?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good.
Kurt, what's up?
It is a big weekend. Eat, drink, and steak, baby. I'll give it to you at the end.
Okay.
You'll get it.
The whole thing or just the sweets?
Both. The whole thing.
That sounds good. Thank you.
And the 22 mil increase. That turned you around. 13. This will be the 13th. Yeah.
It's 12 o'clock, Mayor.
It's 12 o'clock?
Yep.
I'm going to call this special meeting of City Council for the budget presentation to order. Please rise for the invocation. Heavenly Father, as we introduce this budget, give us the wisdom and guidance to do what's best for our residents and our employees, and also make sure that we provide enough of the services they request and deserve. Amen. I pledge
Amen.
allegiance to the flag of the
To the
United
flag
States of America,
United States of America,
and
and to the republic
stands
which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
and liberty
and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger? Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles? Mrs. Volcano? Mayor Panto?
Here. Approval of the agenda.
Move.
Second. Moved in second. Discussion. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to make the presentation of the 2022 budget. As per the city's home rule charter, I am pleased to present this recommended budget for the City Council's review and consideration. Before I deliver my budget message, I would like everyone to stand in honor of our late City Controller, Tony Basile, for a moment of silence for the many years he helped to right the finances of our city. Thank you. I respectfully submit to you the proposed 22 financial plan for the City of Easton, which comprises the general fund, all the enterprise funds, special reserve funds, and internal service funds, including the capital improvement plan, the sewer fund, the health fund, casualty property casualty insurance, city hall, debt service, highway, recreation, open space and recreation, revolving loan, workers' compensation, unemployment, MS4, stormwater, and the parking authority fund. These proposed operating budgets are balanced as required by the Pennsylvania statute. We are in very strange and challenging times. Initiatives at the state and federal level have assisted us in our recovery. Our residents and businesses have made tremendous sacrifices throughout this pandemic, and as our collective response and recovery continues, we are very focused on how we ensure that everyone makes it to the other side. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused an economic devastation that has upended many lives. This budget is the financial foundation that guides the operational and financial planning of the city and is the single most important document presented to Easton City Council. The 2022 proposed budget is guided by the city's mission of maintaining our citizens' quality of life through the provision of value-driven, quality public services and facilities that facilitate and reflect the expectations of our residents and the business community. The reality of the pandemic hit the United States in March 2020, forcing the city, like ours and many others, to close their facilities to the public. Although city facilities were closed, services continued behind the scenes. In fact, our residents saw minimal disruption to services due to the ingenuity of department citywide who went above and beyond to create new and innovative ways to facilitate the continuation of services, while at the same time ensuring the safety and welfare of our employees and our community. There is little doubt that COVID-19 will permanently change some behaviors, like working from home, shopping at brick and mortar stores, And many economists are fearful of the hollowing out of city centers. And even 60% of mayors across this country agree that downtown office buildings will become less desirable. Very few experts expect shops, restaurants, or tourism to return to normal to at least the second quarter of 2022. For Easton, there may be a silver lining in this cloud. We're at a good place to attract offices from bigger cities, and we are currently helping one organization to find a location in our downtown. Unfortunately, we need more office space in our city. Easton offers the experiences of a big city, with the amenities of a small, walkable city. The good news is that we are optimistic with the vaccines and boosters being distributed and restrictions strategically being relifted, that we will return to normalcy sometime on the recent or future horizon. This 2022 budget has many similarities to last year's revised budget that City Council adopted after COVID-19 became the most dreaded word in the world. Created amidst evolving impacts of the global pandemic, the 2022 budget revenue estimates have been formed by our monthly data, insights into relevant industry professionals, and historical trends, but they are tempered by current realities. While Easton and the world emerges from the worst public health and economic crisis of our lifetime, it also been our sound fiscal management over the last decade that allowed us to leverage the city's reserves to keep our city running and prevent an outright fiscal collapse brought on by COVID-19. Support from leadership in the White House has enabled a faster recovery in 2021. More importantly, most of our residents have weathered this turbulent time by getting vaccinated, wearing face coverings, and protecting themselves and others. East has proven that we are a resilient and vibrant city, and every day we are becoming more and more the place to live. Our city has been presented with challenges in many areas. We answered the call with bold and decisive leadership. We are now almost 2 years into a devastating public health crisis that caused almost 700,000 deaths nationally, crippled the operations and finances of many of our residents and businesses, placed our country in what is now known as a supply chain nightmare. Businesses are desperately trying to hire individuals and dramatically altering operations for many of our educational and social institutions. It's so nice to see our kids back in school full time. Our 2021 audit that we have preliminary plans results from will show that despite the pandemic, our revised budget will indicate a surplus for the year ending December 31st, 2021. That's our revised budget. Remember, we presented a budget last year on October 1st, and that budget was ultimately revised in the spring of 2021. The primary reasons for this recovery were the President's American Rescue Plan Act, which was approved by Congress, and the strong lobbying efforts of the National League of Cities, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and the Pennsylvania Municipal League. A major component of that legislation was the ability for municipalities to replace revenue lost to the pandemic. We lobbied for that. We were able to receive that the first time in the history of this country where the federal government was able to help local communities. All cities, towns, and villages across this, and tribal communities across this country were assisted. I'd like to express my appreciation to Louis Campos, our city administrator, Finance Director Mark Lisinecki, the directors, and the budget team for their excellent work. As a direct result of the city's historically prudent financial practices, and despite current revenue losses, the city remains in a strong financial position. As we begin the process of preparing the city's $63.8 million budget for 2022, we must understand that effects of the COVID-19 pandemic will continue to plague our economy over the next year. Over the last 20 months, the city administration has worked diligently on maintaining our core services while adapting to the new normalcy imposed by the global emergency. Starting in March 2020, the city had the monumental task at a moment's notice of developing new business practices and processes, adding protective gear, sanitizing all facilities, and taking necessary precautions to keep our residents, staff safe. Zoom became an everyday word for our senior staff. We were faced with facility closures and cancellation of planned events. And in the midst of all this, we had a horrific blizzard and a hazmat situation at a closed facility. Throughout all of the uncertainty, we committed to maintaining the necessary business decisions and adjustments to redirect our resources and to address the emergency head on. Senior management was on duty every day, and for 4 months we were alone as we were forced to furlough 81 employees. We were also aware that our economy needed assistance if we were to meet the revised budget forecast. To assist local businesses, we created an outdoor dining experience that was copied by other communities, and to assist our non-restaurant small businesses, we held the first annual and very successful Easton Winter Village, complete with an ice skating rink and entertainment. Several business owners told us that if it wasn't for the Winter Village, they would have closed. Plans are underway for this year with an expanded ice skating rink, 50% larger, and an additional 10 huts. Even throughout the challenges of the last 20 months, economic development activities continued as we focused our goals on increasing our population and taxable properties to pre-urban renewal levels. New projects are breaking ground and new small businesses are moving into Easton every day. As we move the city forward, we understand this is just another one of the challenges we face. Our job is to move ahead and provide services to our residents in the most effective and efficient manner. It is our energy, passion, and commitment to Easton based on a strong financial management that makes us all proud of the community where we live, work, and play. Yes, we live in very strange and challenging times. Initiatives at the state and local levels to protect the health and safety of our residents during COVID-19 are significantly impacting our budget and all aspects of daily lives, though we are optimistic that with vaccines being distributed and as restrictions are strategically placed, we hope for a return to what will be considered a new normal, whatever that looks like. I continue to be highly impressed and grateful for the creativity and commitment demonstrated by our municipal leadership and staff. We have identified and implemented innovative ways to conduct operations and deliver necessary services to residents and businesses, simultaneously taking appropriate precautions to keep our employees and the public as safe as possible. Mentally, socially, and economically, many of our residents and families still struggle as the cost of availability of essential goods and services have skyrocketed. If you can get them. The supply chain is depleted and prices continue to rise based on the law of supply and demand. I presented to Council last week our American Rescue Plan budget, which will assist our most vulnerable and working middle-class residents. It'll provide for affordable housing and rental assistance, as well as business assistance and the all-important facade restoration program throughout the cities. Given all these factors and the uncertain outlook for the near future, this is not a time to add financial burdens of our residents and businesses. In our personal finances, if income declines or costs increase, we need to adjust. For this budget cycle, our community must do the same. To that end, I am pleased to present my 2022 budget with no tax increase or fee increase at all. 2022 will be the 13th year without a real estate tax, earned income tax, or fee or trash fee, despite significant increases in all of these areas, including $600,000 in last year's trash contract. We can only accomplish level taxation and fees by growing our city population, taxable properties, and our economy. A stagnant city, very honestly, means higher taxes and higher fees. And hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to propose a decrease in one of these areas. Of course, the revenue replacement allowed by the American Rescue Plan and the refinancing of our debt last year made this possible. The more than $2.5 million from the scoop and toss refinancing our debt at historic low interest rates and extending the term only by 3 years helped the 2021 revised budget and this 2022 budget. The residents thank all of the members of council who voted for this refinancing during the pandemic. The refinancing saved the city $2.5 million last year and will net the city a savings of more than $600,000 annually through 2030. We are still experiencing significant decreases in those line items that are tied to our tourism economy. For example, admissions tax and casino revenues. Together, these line items brought in $1.635 million in 2019 and were originally budgeted the same for 2021. However, the revised budget due to the pandemic, they were budgeted a mere $568,000 for 2021. And next year's budget, together, they are budgeted at $1.2 million. Due to the success of our downtown economy, we are more aggressive on our parking revenue, which was budgeted as $1.3 million in 2020 and in our revised budget and $1.19 million this year. This financial plan contains key components, which includes the financial restoration of the city's fund balances in the various budgets that were used to mitigate COVID and will be incrementally phased out over a 3-year period. My successful lobbying efforts for Easton with the assistance of Senators Casey and Toomey, Congresswoman Wild, and the National League of Cities and the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and the Pennsylvania Municipal League helped us to get our fair share of the American Rescue Plan Act, which helped to restore lost funds last year and provides a significant dollars to help our businesses and residents. You will recall that our allocation was originally $2.7 million, and we then got our fair share of, after all the lobbying efforts of all those groups, to $20.7 million. This budget has prepared with the hope that most of the pandemic will be ending by the second quarter of 2022. As more and more people are vaccinated and feel comfortable returning to gatherings in person, whether dining in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, or enjoying entertainment venues and attractions, or returning to our offices for work. That said, we need to prepare for the new normal because it will not be a pre-pandemic normal. It'll be different. We don't know how different, but we know it'll be different. Maintaining a strong financial position is particularly important for this upcoming budget year because all of our expenses, including the construction of the Confluence, the Watermark, the Commodore, and recently announced Marquee. Opening next year will also be the yards at Easton, the mill at Easton, and the Seville, all opening next spring or summer with the opening of our 4th Street garage and several new businesses. Most importantly, this budget also keeps our residents and businesses clean and safe. Our city service levels high, our infrastructure in repair, and our parks and recreation facilities maintained, beautiful, and enjoyable, fully staffed without any projected furloughs at this time. Through the work of the team, along with our excellent public employees, residents, businesses, and community partners, Easton continues to be a regional leader in so many ways. We are proud of our role in the region, and we enjoy our relationship with the other 6 municipalities that comprise the Easton area. We are also at the state and national scene with the involvement at the National League of Cities, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and Pennsylvania Municipal League. My involvement in these organizations have not only helped me professionally, but have assisted the city in winning almost $80 million in assistance in competitive grants. Without this funding from the county, the state, and the federal governments, most, if not all, of our public improvement and economic development projects would not have occurred. This budget would have been much more difficult to plan and implement. The intent of this budget document is to provide a clear picture of the financial portion of the city. Without knowing the true impact of COVID, it may be a need for revisement again later in the year. The budget is austere and cautiously optimistic towards the impact of our revenues. It also makes some slight adjustments to assist the projected growth that is set to come through the new development that are currently in the stages of review. Also impacted by the epidemic or the pandemic were revenue streams from municipalities far and wide. This city was no exception. Early estimates last year, you will remember, was a $5 million loss of revenue. Actual losses experienced were much lower due to the financing and the scoop and toss. But looking back, the city of Easton made it through 2021 budget COVID year, mostly because of our city administration, city council's staff coming together to do their part. The city also received some financial assistance from the Coronavirus Relief Act and Economic Security Act, known as the CARES Act, through Northampton County. Allow me to present my recommended budget for 2022, but I remind you that this is not the end of the budget process. It is just the beginning. From this point forward, my administrative staff will assist in any manner needed and provide any data requested, but this budget will now be directed by Easton City Council. As the first chart you will see in the report indicates, the budget does not bring city revenues back to 2019 budget level and is approximately $4 million more than the 2021 revised budget and more than $5 million than the 2020 actual, but still less than 2019.
I remember you as a student at Motex.
Would you tell him to mute his phone?
Kenny, could you please mute your phone?
Yes, I do. I'm there. Hold on.
Can you please mute? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Well, we're also getting a conversation we shouldn't hear. The bulk of the revenue increase that is in this budget is directly related to a projected 2% increase in earned income tax line items. These line items were projected, and there's some charts in the report that you will see, but these impacts were basically calling our 3 major employers, the school, the county, the Lafayette College, and the county and the school district. And after nearly 2 years of economic impacts from the pandemic, our revenues are starting to recover, but we did not feel comfortable putting them back to 2019 levels at all because of the variance and the level. And when we were preparing this budget, remember that the COVID variants were still increasing our hospitalizations and deaths, and we're still not sure whether the economy will stay open next year or not. But even without that, the impact of the supply chain problems, looking at Bloomberg yesterday, there's 73 barges sitting out off the coast of California that cannot be unloaded because they have no one to unload them. The supply of workers in the United States is at an all-time low. Everybody's looking for help. So we put our budget based on the 2019 expenses and revenues, or 2020 expenses revenues of the revised budget, not the original budget. The only increase is 2% in the local earned income tax. A critical role of government is responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars amidst the most challenging economic times of our lifetime. Our strong financial management, our long-term preparedness paid off. In all my budget letters over the last decade, I've cited the importance of our reserves. Reserves bolstered us during the massive economic impact of the pandemic. The city did not have the reserves in 2008 and 9 during the Great Recession. And if you look back then, that's when we had to increase earned income tax percentage. Our unaudited 2020 indicates the following reserve balances. For example, the general fund has $5.3 million. Our open space fund has open $435,000. Our liquid fuels fund has $2.2 million. Our debt service fund has $818,000. Our restaurant fund has $309,000. Our capital projects funds has $13,600,000. That's basically because we borrowed the money and we'll be paying out the $12 million we owe on the garage. The health benefit funds and the liability insurance funds, we're being able to put them back up based on a $1.5 million to the health fund and $1 million to the insurance fund from ARPA. That puts them back up to $1.4 million and $1.1 million. We have also the Stormwater MS4 fund is now up to $1.5 million, and there will be projects next year starting to use the money that we had to implement according to federal law a year ago. It was interesting. I'm seeing that other cities are starting, and other boroughs and townships are starting to do the same thing. But revenues are projections based on trends. We have no idea of exactly knowing what the revenue items will be. But we took the position that because of the continued pandemic and variants, our revenues will not increase over the 2021 revised budget, but for the earned income tax. We based this increase on conversations with economists, largest employers, and also talking to our tourist attractions. While it is true that Crayola, the State Theater, and Siegel Museum are all back open, they're not open to the level that they were with getting the crowds that they had in 2019. We look forward to discussions centered on these line items related to the economy, but the administration feels strongly that we should take the conservative position on the revenue items. And if the economy does rebound in 2022, we can reassign those revenues or have a strong surplus on which to build the 2023 budget. From the above, you can see the above chart is real estate revenue versus general fund. Basically, it shows that our reliance on the real estate revenue next year is 25.9% versus 29.9% in 2021 this year. And the reason is people are slower to pay their real estate taxes, and we're based it on what we collected. The most prudent decision, the city's recommendation to refinance the debt we talked about. Easton's recovery is underway. The fiscally responsible budget will help sustain that recovery, but the overall outlook has a chart here that if we recover in second quarter next year, based on our revenue assumptions, 36.64% of this budget is for the police department, 23% is for the fire department, and 19% is for the Department of Public Works. Everything else is less than 3%. And the reason for that is, frankly, because we are a public service and public safety industry. That's what we do. Our financial goals on the flip side, on the expense side, was based on the following goals. Maintaining a full-service city. This budget does that. Keeps everybody working, but it also includes the addition of 3 additional firefighters in anticipation of retirements that we may get this year. It continues our Clean and Safe program. The police department will be fully funded, and fully staffed. Stormwater infrastructure needs and climate change activities, both very important to us, whether it be our emissions and gases that are released into the atmosphere, street trees, or whether it be our stormwater and how we maintain the stormwater, the more severe and frequent storms that we're receiving, how that impacts the, we're impacted by the rain events, the siltation of our waterways. All that is included in next year's budget. We're also continuing our high quality asset and infrastructure governance. Unfortunately, most of that is below surface, so you don't see it. You will probably have seen up until this week the group at the Center Square relining all the sewer lines underneath the circle in anticipation of the circle project. We expect to do that throughout the rest of the year with all of our neighborhoods. The most critical pipes. And also, we continue to high-quality asset management and infrastructure governance. And then lastly, we are enhancing our park system. Many improvements and even additional lands for open space and parks have been completed since 2008, but we have a long way to go to restore our park system and add new ones the residents want and deserve. To that end, you remember that I implemented when I took office the Open Space and Recreation Fund, which charges all of our new developments, mostly downtown, it's true, with paying a fee toward that Open Space and Recreation Fund. It's funded things like the Nevin Park Fountain, the Boys and Girls Club Greenhouse, and the new basketball court at the Neighborhood Center, et cetera. This year, through the Open Space and Recreation Fund, we expect to fund new fencing at Heil Park Athletic Complex, new goalposts at Heil, new bleachers for Heil, kitchen equipment at the Heil Fieldhouse, outfield wall safety at the Hackett's Park Complex. Right now, in the hardball field, which is probably one of the nicest hardball venues in the Lehigh Valley, we have a lot of balls being hit over the fence and landing on cars, one of the cars I know for sure, on Hackett Avenue. So we need to restore that, what we used to call the green wall, green monster. A new scoreboard at Hackett, infield work at Hackett, grandstand roof at Hackett, upgrading the locker rooms at the Heil Pool, replacing the pool gutters at the Heil Pool, and new diving blocks there as well. And also the creation of a regulation volleyball court where the sand court is at Eddyside Park. There are no additional expense highlights next year other than increasing the fire department by 3 firefighters in anticipation of retirement. However, the budget does provide funding for the open personnel positions that remain vacant through the use of ARPA funds. You recall that Mr. Shear still didn't get his third assistant or second assistant. I do not have a administrative assistant. The city clerk / whatever position we were going to make that is assistant city clerk, excuse me. And that position, they were supposed to be filled this past June, but because of revenue shortages the way they were, we kept them out until January. They are anticipated to be filled in January through the use of ARPA funds, which is allowed. I also like to note that 16% of our general fund is being paid in legacy pension costs through our MMO. That MMO is coming from the aggregated pension fund, which was approximately $30 million when we took office in 2008 and now stands at $72 million, thanks to a very robust stock market and also making sure that our investment advisors are getting us a good return. Although the MMO is slightly lower this year, very slightly lower, it's still well above the $6 million or about the $6 million that it's been for last year and this year. As you recall, the MMO is 2 years. We get that report 2 years in a row, and the 22 is still over $6 million. It does not. The good news is we are no longer paying retirees from the contribution to the pension fund. We are paying them from pension assets. So that has been a big change. Overall, the proposed 22 budget provides the resources to serve our community, improve our infrastructure, maintain our assets, and more importantly, improve the overall quality of life. As the city ramps back to what is expected to be the new normal, plans for 2022 consist of a steady and consistent approach to focus on vital investments and help provide an equitable recovery and growth for residents and businesses across the city. We look forward to discussing, refining, and finalizing the budget. A year and a half into the pandemic, as of this writing, Pennsylvania is among one of the hot spots for the resurgence. We ask that you keep this in mind as you deliberate the budget, because although it is for a 12-month budget, we don't know if we'll have to do the same thing we did last year. In recent years, the city has taken steps to strengthen fiscal controls, replenish reserves, restore operating capital, invest in the aging infrastructure. In taking these steps, the property values continue to increase, and the city becomes more appealing for residential and commercial activities. In preparation of the 2022 budget, it is important to maintain this direction and positive momentum that has already been established. Despite the coronavirus challenges we faced during this and previous year, fiscal year's budget process, we were successful in producing a balanced 2022 budget. This is a budget that continues from a strong place and places emphasis on maintaining current service levels, addressing public safety service delivery, and preventive measures to minimize ongoing effects to the coronavirus. It is recommended that the proposed budget be approved, maintaining the 13th consecutive year millage at 24.95, and based on the assessment from 1987, which is much more than the 10 years required. So while our millage appears high, our assessments are very low, making us an affordable place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much for listening, and there are copies for the press and city council on the table. The message is here, and every line item is here. I did it on ledger paper so that as you're getting older, you guys. Yep. I don't think your mic is on.
Nope, it was not. We have the budget review session scheduled for Tuesday, October 26th at 6 p.m., Tuesday, November 9th, and Tuesday, November 16th, both at 6 p.m. And if needed, another budget session would be held on Tuesday, November 23rd at 5 p.m. prior to our regularly scheduled council meeting for that day. Just wanted to let everybody know.
On Thanksgiving week, we don't have the Wednesday meeting. We hold the stated session on Tuesday.
Okay.
All right, at this point, we have public comment. Anyone like to take their 5 minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There's second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown?
He's muted.
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.